Hello, everyone. We're going to get started in a couple minutes. We invite you to take a next few minutes to wrap things up or to move to another location. We'll be getting started in about 4 minutes.
Hi, friends. We are going to start our forum pretty soon. So I would invite us all to come forward and grab a seat up front. We're going to start our forum with this wonderful group up front in just a minute. Okay, friends, we are going to start our forum. We're going to start our forum, so come on up and grab a seat. I'll bring some more chairs up.
Hello, everybody. You're welcome to stay. You don't have to run away. We're presenting a forum today on City Reach, and I'll explain to you a little bit about what that was and who went, and then we have our wonderful group, part of it, here to share what that was like with you all, and we welcome questions, of course, too. So. Back in January, we went, Anna and Sarah, her mom, and I went with 11 teens to City Reach, and that is an overnight educational program in Boston that teaches youth groups and church groups, teenagers in general, about the issues of homelessness and they actually get to experience some things and meet a lot of the people that use the services down there. So I'm going to try and remember this because the slide is way gone. So I'm going to introduce to you Ava Graves, Lucy Ryder, Orly McClure, Sophie Moynihan, Sam Donaldson, Sarah Bishop, there she is, and Anna Bishop. We also had Kevin Aber. Is this last name Aber? Aber, sorry. We had Evie Packenow. We had Maya Gills, Annika Baravald, Chloe Bennick. Who else am I missing? And Brooke Mitchell. I think that was it. We had such a great group, and we also went with the group from Concord. They had a group of ninth graders, so we were even bigger, and we got more donations, and it was a wonderful trip. So I'm gonna ask them a couple of questions, sort of to get them started. But if you have questions, please feel free to ask away. Okay, so. Why don't you tell the group why you went and maybe what you expected out of this trip? And then we'll get into what you actually did. So you doesn't have to be, you can do popcorn or whatever. Oh, look at that.
I didn't. This is my second year going, so as far as expectations go, I kind of knew what to expect. But I'm Sophie. Hi, and I don't know. It's a very influential experience, and I thought it really impacted me the last time I went. And it was definitely something that I thought about a lot, and so I definitely wanted to return, just because I don't know. I think it's one of those things that you can kind of like have the experience, and then it's easy to kind of forget about and like move on with your life because it doesn't directly affect your life. So I think it is important to like service shouldn't always be just like a one-time event. Something that is continuous and annual is, I think, just a little bit more significant. So that's definitely why I wanted to go back.
Yeah, I'm Orly. This is my first year going to City Reach, and I don't know, I feel like when living in a place like Lincoln, we're typically like sheltered from kind of homelessness and like other struggles like that, and it was important to see that like other people have like different struggles and different experiences than us. and I really enjoyed it. So
My name's Lucy. This was my first time going to, and I just went because I thought it'd be a cool experience. I think I didn't have many expectations going into it, but I definitely learned a lot, and it was very impactful.
I went last year. I'm Ava, and I really enjoyed it last year, and I also enjoyed it this year. But it was nice going again and like seeing some of the same like volunteer people, and like it's very impactful.
My name is Sam, and this is my second year going, and I definitely think it was really impactful the first time that I went, but I also think that we did a couple different things this time that we went that I learned a lot from, and so I definitely wanted to go again because the experience wasn't the same. We talked to a lot of different people. We talked to the same people also, but it was definitely a different experience just because we got to meet new people, but also we got to do a couple different things that we didn't get to our first year.
I'm Sarah, and I really didn't have any expectations. I was just open to whatever the experience made available to me. And I also want to say that I wanted to share the time with our youth. Many of them I've known since they were little 2-year-olds, and I wanted to just sort of re-energize our relationship.
I'm Anna, and I wanted to learn more about homelessness firsthand.
Would one of you like to let's describe what you did when you were there? Does somebody want to take on the stuff leading up to the trip? Did you just show up, or did we do some things beforehand? Does anybody want to take that?
We collected clothes and donations, our church, and then what was the other?
The First Parish in Concord.
The First Parish in Concord also collected clothes, and then the night before, or 2 nights before?
We did it the week before.
Oh,
this time, but
the week before we had dinner and sorted through the clothes, so they were all ready to put in the car the following Friday.
Anybody want to? Yeah, that was great. Anybody want to add or elaborate on that part? We had by the end, we had bags of shoes, bags of sweaters. So we sorted everything, like Ava said, so that when we got there, everything was really easy to put in different sections, because they'll tell you about what we did with them once we got there. We also collected a lot of food that they require because they feed people every day. So that was another piece. So there was a lot of, we had some requirements. They had to do a lot of work leading up to the trip. So not everybody who initially was interested could do it. But these guys did a lot of work. What about, did you want to add?
I just wanted to add that I was never aware that they had asked for donations, and yet bags and bags and bags and bags of them were coming in. So it would be wonderful if next year we as a church community could donate what we have, especially warm clothes.
So that night, what did we do when we got there? So we went on a Friday night, and we had dinner here, right? I'm like, yeah, we had dinner here, and then we traveled down to City Reach, which is, there's a lot of the slides of what we were doing. But yeah, what happened on Friday night?
We first arrived and we like put away all of our stuff. You put all of the donations in the middle. There's a giant pile of all the different churches and organizations, what everyone brought. And then we had like a little meeting, I guess. We all sit in a circle, and there's a priest? She was a girl. Minister?
Minister? Yeah.
Minister from... Is it an Episcopal church? Reverend? Yeah, she was a reverend. And she led she led like a little discussion service, and she kind of spoke to us, and then a bunch of the City Reach staff, who all of them are either currently or were homeless, they introduced themselves. They sort of give a bit of their story and like talk about their lives and their experiences a little bit, and then we break into groups, and we have different of the City Reach staff. They lead us on a walk, and we walk around through Boston at night, and they kind of give you a tour of like, I guess, things you wouldn't usually notice when you're walking around a city at night. So they'll like show you different, they'll be like, that's the shelter that people would go to, and people don't like to go there. Or here's where we would sleep at night, or here's where we weren't allowed to sleep because the police would always come here. We would try and hide here. Like, they give you a very like, it's like a different experience of the city and a different perspective. And then the next day we sort, the clothes are all sorted, and then we set up a bit of a store, I guess. Like, there's a bunch of clothes, and there's different stations, and people can walk through, and they have little checklists, and we check off what they got, and we ran like different, I don't know what you guys did, like shoes. I don't know, we all ran different spots, and people would come through, and you would help them find what they were looking for. And
She went too.
Should I share what we did after that?
Sure. Or anything to add to that piece? Because when we got there and we went on the walks, we had two different groups, right? So we did two different. There's like probably how many people? 100 people that are there. It sounds like it's just us, but there are many groups from all over Massachusetts that bring their youth to this, and so they broke us up into different groups. Do you want to go backwards a little and describe your walks, or?
I don't know if you said this, but we brought blankets to give to the unhoused people. So that, yeah. And did we talk about how we unloaded like a bunch of cars and put on a bunch of cars with donations and put them inside the church?
And you'll see that on the.
It's like a big.
Yeah, in the group, Sophie kind of mentioned this, but in the group that I was in this year, something that we didn't do the first year that we went is we got to go down. We went like farther than we did my first year, and we got to go kind of near the shelters and where the shelters were, the night shelters, and it was just interesting to learn how unsafe they were for people, and our people that were leading us around, they were talking about how they never really felt safe in the shelters, and they had to keep everything they had really close to them because people would either steal, and it just really wasn't a safe place for them to be, but they didn't have anywhere else to go.
Could I ask, who was in each group? Was it you all? It wasn't just you all in a group, and it wasn't just you all and the other churches. It was actually the unhoused people were in your group.
Yeah, so there are unhoused guides that some are currently unhoused and some were previously unhoused, and they're the people that work with City Reach to give us tours of Boston and then also help us throughout the weekend. So I think in my group, we had two different people that we were working with. One, I think, is currently housed but was previously unhoused.
Could I ask, when you talk to them about their stories, was there anything that you heard that really surprised you?
Well, when they were sharing their stories, like the night we got there, I heard that like a lot of them had issues with their family where they got kicked out and they didn't really have like a support system and stuff like that, or they had like health issues where they like couldn't pay rent and stuff like that.
But their backgrounds, were they very varied?
Yeah, it was a little bit of everything. Like I heard people who were like born into poverty and homelessness, and there was people who, I think one of them grew up in Lexington, like with a house and like a nice family and stuff, but he had family issues. And
also think it was kind of notable that I think a lot of people assume there's a background with like substance abuse or drugs with a lot of them, and I think it's notable that that's not the case for a lot of them, and it is for many of them, but not for it's not a, and it is really a very unique experience to each of them because each story is very different, and there was one girl who went to what school did she go to there was a girl that went to Newton Country Day School on scholarship, and she was one of our guides, and she spoke 7 languages, I think, and she was very smart. She was there on scholarship, and I think it was someone in her family died. Her mom died her senior year of high school, and she was unable to afford further education or ended up homeless, and so there's just a lot of different backgrounds and definitely it's a very different experience for all of them. So I think that's one of the most important takeaways is that it's not like a formula to what caused this, and they're not all like criminals or people, like it's just very different ways of coming to be.
So does anybody want to add to that, their experience of meeting people? Okay. Maybe let's go on and what did you do on Saturday? You started to mention it, Sophie, but does somebody want to explain? Because there are a lot of pictures showing Saturday up here. You guys don't know that, but yeah.
So Saturday morning after we sorted all the clothes, I know I was I was with shoes, and I think other people with hats and gloves, and then you were on something else. Undergarments. And we were kind of people, homeless, unhoused people could come in and they would get a checklist, and you would check off when they came to your station and got something. And it was definitely, I remember this from our first year, but it was really prevalent this year too. When I was on shoes, they knew what they wanted to get, and it was really hard when you didn't have what they wanted. Because I mean, it's also about like dignity. They have they know what they want, and you really want to help them. They want like pink shoes, or they want Uggs, or they want slippers. They want something in particular, and it's really hard when you don't have what they're looking for. And then after that, we got the opportunity this year, which we didn't get the previous year, to actually go out on the street and do, they call it street ministry. And so we brought out sandwiches and hats and gloves and blankets. And if you saw somebody on the street who was homeless, you could ask them if they wanted a sandwich or ask them if they wanted hats or gloves. And it was a really eye-opening experience because there was a lot of people that we were able to help that didn't know about City Reach and weren't able to come into City Reach, who we were still able to help that day. And it was also just really interesting to connect with the people on the street. I remember there was one woman who we talked to who she didn't want, we gave her hats and gloves, but we asked her, like, do you want another pair or something? And she said, no, leave it for the next person. And even though she had next to nothing, she was really thinking about the homeless community. And one other example, just there really is a community out there on the streets that they talk about. There was this one woman, and she was talking to us about how there was a man who had been running around and hurting people on the streets, and she was describing him to us and just like warning us to stay safe and just like be alert. And so she was also just really caring towards us.
I noticed in the morning when we were like at our tables when people came in to select their things, I was on socks, and the guy I was with, he knew everyone who came in, or almost everyone, and he would talk to them about their families and their experiences. Like, he knew everyone, and he was so fun and nice, and he told me his whole story, and it was really interesting on how he was trying to get, I think, like public government housing and stuff, and how hard that is because his agent or the person that was trying to help him find housing, like, it was backed up 3 months or something, which was hard. And yeah, he kind of just knew everyone, and there was a limit. They told us a limit of like 2 socks per person, but this guy that I was working with, like, he knew if people had like families or something. He was like, oh, take this pair to your mom or something like that. So that was really fun.
Yeah, I also thought when we were walking around, like Sam was saying, doing the street ministry, it was also interesting how like we couldn't always tell like who was homeless or who wasn't. But then some of the guides knew, but it's very interesting that homelessness looks very different for many different people.
The people who we like met on the streets, they were very kind, and when we got to give them like things, they were like, oh no, I don't need gloves. Do you have socks or do you have a scarf? They just wanted what they needed, and they didn't take more than they needed. And I thought that was fair. Even though that they needed things, they wanted to give the stuff to other people.
I don't exactly remember how it happened, but I do remember that we ended up in another church, sort of diagonally across from where we were. And it was, I don't know if you'd call it a soup kitchen, but they were serving a hot meal. And we noticed that they also had a clothing donation room. And we did have a lot left over, so we ended up taking some of our leftovers to their donation room. And I think there was another sharing we did between them. Oh, some of them ended up coming to our church and having more lunch, I think. I don't remember.
Something that stuck with me was that one of the people said, "We're not bad people, we're just misunderstood."
I'm really glad you all had this chance to have this experience. I'm just kind of wondering what the feelings were that came up for you. I mean, because I imagine some of it was hard, and I'm wondering what you're feeling and what you've been able to do with those feelings, either together or how you process some of that.
That's a good question.
I felt very, very sad, and it was kind of like a changing point for me because, like other people said, like, oh yeah,
Close to, yeah.
oh yeah, I felt very sad because it was kind of like a changing point for me because when I saw, like before I did City Reach, this is my first year, I like had like stereotypes in my head, and then after like seeing their stories and hearing what they said, like I felt emotional because I realized that like my stereotypes were totally messed up, and yeah, it was sad.
As this being my second year, I think it was really hard for me when we saw some of the same people because like we came home after and like we ate food with our families, and you know we like took a shower and we slept in our own beds. But for a lot of the people that we saw like the second year, they had been living on the streets the entire year without a place to stay. And so I think it was just really hard. Like we recognized some of the same people, or we had some of the same guides who had been unhoused for the entire year, and it was just really hard like seeing them a year later.
Yeah, I think that was definitely something that, like, going for a second year really, really stood out to me. I also think, like, with the like, when we're giving out the donations at the store, I don't know, I think that really brings up a lot of emotions because it's also when their gratitude is really, like, really makes you feel like, I don't know, makes you, like, how grateful they are for a pair of socks that we would just, like, kind of not really consider to be that influential in someone's life. And then also just like Sam was mentioning before, how everyone had like their own specific like wants, and like because they're all human, you know, and it's a really humanizing experience, and you realize these people that you like don't really take a second glance at and like maybe like try and avoid are truly like human like the rest of us, and have these same, they have taste and they have things that they want, and they have their own like way that they want to present themselves, and even though they have very little, that's still like they have dignity and they're proud of themselves and they want to have. And so I think that was really interesting, was like kind of seeing like human like self-expression even in like the like darkest parts of our like society, I guess, and the way that they still had these like views of themselves that they were able to maintain. So I guess just like the resilience that they show was really impactful. And then also, like Sam said, with like when you come home, it definitely is like, I feel like you're like, why do I, not like why do I have this, but just like, oh, like I have so much, you know? So I think that's definitely a really big experience. I think like the whole week after, that really sticks with you, and you like hear people talking and you're like, wow, like this is what we're talking about, like this is what we care about. And it's like I'll be like walking around my high school, I'm like, wow, like I'm like so lucky, and I'm so, and then it's kind of hard because then you realize when you go back, you're like, oh yeah, I did think about that for like a few weeks, and then I was like worrying about my finals and I was stressing about other things. And I think that like kind of sticks with you each year you go, and you're just like, oh wow.
I also think they've kind of said this a little bit, but it stuck with me, like how long some people are homeless for. Like it'd be like a majority of my life. That's how long they've been homeless for. So that's just very eye-opening.
Yeah, same with me. I went last year as well as them, and it was really sad seeing the same people again, but it was also nice to know that they're still like using the resources that the like city or that City Reach like provides for them, that they're still getting what they need. And I know they're just trying to make like they're just trying to do the best that they can, and it's really like important, I think, to go there.
I just have a broader question about, so this is one weekend in the year that you go, but what else is City Reach doing to support these communities throughout the year? Are there other visits by other schools, or what's happening at City Reach?
Don't they do like every other month, or every month they do this what we do?
Yeah, City Reach does this. I think it is one weekend a month, and so they invite. I guess if you wanted to go and spend an overnight every single month, you could. It costs money, and the fees that they pay go to their operating costs. And I think they only have like maybe 2 staff people, and the rest are volunteers. But to keep the lights on, the heat on, and everything else. But as far as this group, we talked about that, and maybe one of you can explain the last activity that we did, because you don't just go in and then, okay, great, and you go home. They actually sort of wrap this up at the end, and each group does a little bit of a thought process. Last year, they wrote a really beautiful little prayer as well, but this year, you made more of a list, and I can't remember what the questions were. It was maybe what you will take with you, what you will think about, and maybe that could be part of it. Oh, was that what it was?
Yeah, sorry. I think it was like something that surprised you in a good way, and then things that surprised you in a bad way, and then like what Laura said, things you'll take forward, or like what you're gonna do.
So just to answer that though, I just want to follow up though. Last year, when we came home, I remember you all talked a lot about, thinking about what kinds of donations are the more popular, more needed things, like extra, 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 extra large things, because they layer. They don't a lot of them don't have coats, and so you might not even be a very big person, but you have 5 sweaters on because that's how you carry things around. And so we talked a little bit about, like maybe doing more drives that would cater to this group a little bit better, because they're not, some things go really fast and some things don't. Like we noticed that everybody wants Patriots logoed stuff. They're very proud. But Sam, what were you gonna say?
Well, we also make multiple times a year. We made sandwiches for City Reach because I think every Sunday they do a service out in Boston Commons, and then lunch. They provide lunch for the people who show up. And so last weekend.
Oh yeah, last
Yeah.
week, yes.
Last weekend, with the kids during RE, we made sandwiches to bring to City Reach, but also as a youth group, we've made sandwiches, and so they do take like food and sandwich donations every week, and they look for them multiple times a week to provide for people.
I think my question was answered. It was just what were their wishes. Are you making a list of their wishes for another time? And I think you brought that up, so thank you.
Is there anything else that you all brought home with you that you're thinking about in terms of what we can do before the next visit there? And my second part is, who would go back?
I would definitely go back again, and I think they need more more shoes maybe, because there wasn't a lot of ranges of different types of shoes. There was a lot, but they had a lot of the same sizes, because I think a lot of people are donating their old winter stuff, and it's just a bunch of one size shoe.
Yeah, I think that I would definitely go back as well. And then also with what they definitely needed is, I just noticed a lot of the women wanted more feminine things. Kind of going back to what I was saying about their expression, and I think they just wanted to they didn't want to look like men, and they wanted to wear something that was pink maybe, or they wanted something that was more feminine appearing because that's how they wanted to present themselves. And so I think that was definitely just things that are more not just a big old brown sweatshirt that we found in the back of our closets. I think that's kind of something that I noticed. And then yeah, so I just drives that are have more diverse things in them.
I know another church mentioned at the end when we were talking about what our next steps would be. They mentioned as a church making bags with snacks in them, that if you ever see somebody on the street who's homeless, being able to give them that, and as a whole church they would make those. And I definitely think that's a cool idea, just because City Reach happens once a month, but these people are living on the streets every single day. And when you're in Boston, you'll always see multiple people who are on the streets, and just you never know, they never know when their next meal is going to be, and so definitely being able to help them in some way, just little ways.
Yeah, I would definitely go back too. And I was on the toiletries kind of table, and two things that I noticed ran out really quickly that people wanted more of are razors and pads. So those are two things that are definitely wanted.
I was on the sock table, and I noticed that a lot of people brought in the donations were a lot of those thin, small little white ankle socks. Those, nobody really took those, and what went first was the big fluffy warm socks, because it's cold out and it's snowing, and the little ankle socks don't really do much. But also something that's not as materialistic, but if you're just in Boston or something, if you see someone who is unhoused, I think it's really important to just kind of make them feel like a person, and say hi, how are you, and stuff like that, even if you don't really have anything to give them at the time.
Laura, could you put together, with the help of this remarkable team, a real list of specific shoe sizes? You know, this is the time of year where a lot of stores are discarding their winter clothes. I mean, if we could get size 4X somewhere now and save it for next winter. And do they don't accept I mean, not dirty socks, used socks, right? Is it only new socks or do they accept used?
It's supposed to be only new socks. I know some people brought in used socks, but we couldn't hand it out, which was sad. But
But you know, as specific a list as you can give us, because it's sort of like a treasure hunt for all of us to be on the lookout for these things. And if we could have a tremendous, you know, collection by next year when you go again.
Maybe we could put a section, you know, in the newsletter or something of like the top 5 things or something. Yeah.
At the school at Quincy Catholic Academy where I was up until December, we used to make blessing bags for Father Bill's place. And I have a list I can give you of the things we put in there. But among the things that we gave were these little affirmations, which were like prayers, which were a little bit like what Orly is saying, reminding, you know, sort of you're a person, I'm a person, here's something to think about. It can be a prayer, it can be just something uplifting. And I laminated them, cut them up and laminated them so they could just stick in pockets. But in the blessings, I can send you the list of everything that, you know, deodorant, razors, socks, mouthwash, toothpaste, portable toothbrush, those kind of travel toothbrush that you stick in your clothes. But anyway, it was fun to do. My students loved doing it. And then Father Bills would pick up the box of blessing bags and then they would distribute them. And that was when they were in Dorchester. But I'm sure that there are other places that would appreciate something like that. And that can be any season, a blessing bag too. And I have a friend who would keep them in her car and just hand them out.
I just had 2 things. One thing, when I read somewhere in the newspaper that all the clothes we put in some of these places end up going to Africa and then they don't need them and they throw them in the sea. So I am so happy to hear about a place that we can really take our things that are really used. And the second thing I wanted to say, it was a real gift to the congregation for you to come and share your experience with us. It just meant so very much to us that you did this. So thank you, each one of you.
Any other questions?
I just wanted you to know that I gave you this little piece of paper, that it would be great if you yourselves could read at bedtime. I gave it to the kids to take home with them because it's very simple. We are fed, we are warm, we are safe, and we are grateful.
Do you all have any closing remarks? Anything that you'd like you know, anything that you'd like to say? Anything that you'd like to just
anything you'd like us to know about your experience that hasn't been said yet? Any of you?
I mean, I just think what Orly said is really important, just like that these people are human and that we should try and like say hello or introduce yourself, because I think that was like the amount of people that you would see when we were walking around that were just like brightened because they hadn't been like spoken to in a way that isn't like move or what are you doing here, or getting like yelled at by like a security guard. Like they hadn't felt like that in so long, and I think it's just like showing like I see you, I acknowledge you, and I'm not just like walking by like you're a piece of trash on the ground that I don't want to like get on my shoe, you know, like just actually like speaking to them and just engaging in conversation, because some of them are just so excited to talk to you and they have so much to say and they have so much, like there's so much we can learn from them. So I think that's just something that I would really hope people like bring forward is just like, because we live so close to a really, really different world. And I think we're just kind of really adjusted to our life. And I think it's just important that when we go to places that are very different from where we are, to like understand that just because people are different, it doesn't mean they're any less important.
I just wanted to sort of remind ourselves that when I first came to this church maybe 30 years ago, and for a long time afterwards, we had a really strong group of people in the church who were a part of an advocacy group for the homeless, and so worked not only at sort of the level you're working at, but advocating for legislative changes that would improve the lives of people who are unhoused. And it's kind of fallen off in recent years, but Lorraine Brown, yeah.
And years ago, we used to go into the women's lunch place, and we would go in and we would make lunch, and then we would sit with the people that we were serving. And I sat with people who were PhDs and really smart people, and it was a really wonderful thing. And then we would clean up and come home, and it was always very exhausting because we were, just so moved by all of this. But to hear all of you, I'm so grateful. So thank you, each one of you.
Well, I can't thank you all enough, and thank you all for coming and listening. And we'll be back next year with more report. Thank you very much.